You know, toes out. We know you African brothers like to wear the sandals with the toes out, man. We know that the African uncles, we know how they rock, man.
All right, I'll be sure to have some saddles out, in New Orleans and here on episode 44 of the Block to Block podcast, best podcast in the world for all things Web3. Here we break down the technology, what's going on in the market, and the ways in which you can benefit. I am NFT and Jai,
And I am Web3 Wayne.
and over here the talk is different.
Yes, sir. Always different. And as y'all know, there's only one part of the talk that has to stay the same. Every week, we are consistently telling you that this podcast, this show is only for informational purposes. It is not for financial advice. So please, if you don't want to lose your cheese, cheddar, mozzarella, provolone, you're going to go ahead and consult a financial advisor or any other financial professional that can help you double, triple, quadruple your bread. And with that, let's get the pod started.
Let's get it started, man. Episode 44. This places us at 11 months of the podcast.
Oh, shoot. Well, we got a year coming up in August. Did we start this last August?
Yeah, I suppose so. Since we do this every week, time just flies when you're having fun. But
Yeah, yeah,
it's important to commemorate like just the journey that we have done in terms of like doing a podcast and just really diving into this industry of Web3, right? We've seen a
yeah.
lot of highs, we've seen a bunch of lows, we've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, but it's been a beautiful journey because we have been learning a lot. So shout out to 11 months of consistency, baby. Haven't
Yeah,
missed Thursday.
man. Hey, man, it's commitment at its finest. Commitment at its finest. We might have to bring back that developer series too when we hit that 52 week mark. Have
Mm,
7 streams hop on. You know, nifty Nico come on. I don't know what her name gonna be, but get
we
the
should ask her. It's gonna, I'm gonna call it Nanotech Nico.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
She's probably listening like, man, shut up, y'all.
Yeah,
Anyway,
bro.
with that aside, shout out to consistency. Biggest tip for everybody who's listening, no matter what you do, if you're dedicated to something, be consistent in it.
That's it.
And with that consistency, we have consistently been outside and consistently bring you to events. Shout out to Dave Ramsey and the Deep Roots family. We had a
Yes, sir.
case last Friday out of Cleveland. That was a crazy experience, man. Web3 Wayne made me drive the entire way from Philly to Cleveland, both there and back.
Passenger Prince, baby. Passenger Prince.
Right, but it was dope, man. Just like showing up to Cleveland, being in that ecosystem, and just meeting with people in person, right? And so that was a great
Yeah.
experience. But the show must go on.
Yeah. Hey, look, before we go on, I want y'all to know, okay? NFT and Jive was like, man, you're not driving my car. I didn't heard how you New Orleans, you New Orleans folk drive. You ain't gonna be driving my vehicle, man. I asked this man multiple times. I was like, hey, I can hop on. He was like, nah, man, I got it. I got it. So listen, if y'all want to know what the real story is, 2 sides of every story. This man ain't even let me touch the wheel, man. He ain't let me touch the
Unless
wheel.
you touched the wheel when we got to the city.
Yeah, that's about it.
That's when I was tired. I
That's
was like,
about
all right,
it.
go ahead, take the keys.
He was like, "Oh, we got to go run errands." Oh yeah. You could drive. You could drive. It's crazy, y'all. Crazy.
Yeah, hey, we should have recorded that and just made it like a whole chronicle series.
Facts. Yeah, that's what we have to do for our next shows that's coming up. Speaking of, let the people know what's coming. Look, we coming in hot. What's coming in for next week? What we got coming
Man,
for the next week?
nothing so short of history. That's what it has to be said because next week, next Thursday on the 29th, we have the Simply New Orleans showcase, a Mr. Out the Frame experience with the one and only Patrick Henry.
Yes, sir.
It's going to be dope. Next week is historic because it's going to be Essence Fest in New Orleans from that Thursday to Sunday, right? And we're kicking off Essence Fest, which is our really amazing art showcase. It's going to be happening at Canal Studios on like Canal Street, like that big luxury mall outlet. They have like a artistic space in there, and we're just gonna have an exquisite experience in which you get to see just the culture, the vibrancies, the music, the essence of New Orleans, all through the perspective of Patrick Henry. And his work is dope. They call him Miss Out the Frame because his work's literally out the frame, right?
Yes.
He specializes in like making 3D art on wood canvases, and it's amazing. I know Web3 Wayne here is a collector of his, got some of his works,
I got
multiple works.
I got too much. I got too much of this words. I got prints. I got real art. It got to the point my girlfriend was like, "Hey, I think we need some different art. We can't just have one person all over our walls." I was like, you right. You
It's
right.
taking up too much real estate.
Listen. I'm a believer. I'm a believer. So Patrick, he's Jamaican. So basically, she made me go out and buy Haitian art. So we got some Haitian art sitting in the studio room as well, the creative room, if you will. That's what we call this space.
Create from, if you
So
will. That's what we call this space. So yeah. Shout out to the Caribbean. Shout out to my West Indian folk.
you
But
feel me?
yeah, man, this is gonna be
Especially New
amazing.
Orleans. Especially New Orleans. Yeah, it's gonna be a great time, man. I'm excited to do an art show back down in my hometown in my city, man. It's been a long time coming. I'm excited to do something with Patrick. It's crazy, when I first met Patrick, didn't know this is how we be working together. I don't even think we had a fully fleshed out, like blockchain situation figured out. We might have just started talking about it, integrating it into our business. So it's crazy that it's kind of coming full circle. I actually met Patrick not too far from over there. He was doing Luna Fete, which is a light show down in New Orleans, and we met there. Saw his artwork. It was really dope. And matter of fact, the artwork that we actually bought that night is still back down in New Orleans at my parents' crib. So listen, Patrick, he holds a special place in my heart, and it's really dope to be able to bring this technology to help transform how he does work, and uh, hoping, right, it transforms the way that he makes money, and makes a living for his family. Not that he needs much of our help. He's a well established artist.
Been crushed.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely up and coming. He's had his work as part of the Treme Fest poster. He does Jazz Fest every year. He's done Essence Art Show as well. Was the featured artist for Fried Chicken Fest, if I'm not mistaken. So he's done just amazing work over the past few years, and really has been up and coming. So come out, check us out, come experience some amazing art. You will not be disappointed. We will have complimentary drinks and complimentary food there, and we have a raffle going on as well. So we're raffling off one of Patrick's pieces. You'll be able to get and Mr. Out the Frame artwork, which is very much uh, high class art for $10, and you have the chance to win some artwork from a renowned artist in the New Orleans ecosystem. So definitely come out, check us out. It's gonna be a great time. We're really excited about this one. Like I said, this is one that's near and dear in the hometown. Doing it with Patrick. Canal Place is gonna be crazy. Come kick off your Essence weekend with us. It's gonna be a nice little, exquisite experience before you go and get busy for the weekend. So come
Yeah,
hang out with us.
it's gonna be Whew, I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be fire.
First time NFT and Giants coming down to New Orleans. He been ducking and dodging me for years now, so I'm finally getting him out there in that heat, y'all. Y'all got to come show him a good time.
Not even that. I've been begging, crying, and begging for years to come down to New Orleans, and Web3 Wayne's always like, "Nah."
It's more like the universe, man. It ain't me. You supposed to come down. Was it 2021? You was supposed to come.
2020, but COVID happened.
2020 COVID happened. I think 2021 too, and then something happened that time.
All types of stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah, something always happens. So,
But
we,
listen, I'll say this: every time I come to a city for the first time, we have to be doing something major. I went to Atlanta for the first time last month, and we had that fire showcase with Zeke. And
yeah,
now my first time in New Orleans, we're gonna have a fire showcase as well.
yes,
So
sir.
for me to come to your city, we gotta make history. I'm just saying.
That's it. That's the only way to do it. That's the only way to do it. And best believe we're not stopping at New Orleans. It's just the beginning. So definitely stay tuned for all the events that's to come. We have some special things cooking up with some special people, man. It's really an honor to be working with all of the organizations and businesses that trust us, with this innovative vision, man.
Hmm.
I'm jumping out my chair, man. Damn near jumping out the gym. So um, yeah, looking forward to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. But with that, the people are here for the Web3 news. They're trying to get into it. So how about we just start them off quickly with our world famous quick take?
Ooh, you got me coming in hot as you usually do, but it's all good. I love coming in hot. And we're gonna kick today's show off talking about none other than Bitcoin itself. So we just want to talk a little bit about what to know about crypto investing as regulators weigh the first spot Bitcoin ETF or exchange traded funds. This is a big moment for Bitcoin as we see institutional investors really come heavy into the game. And with that, BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, has applied to list a US spot Bitcoin ETF. If successful, this would be the first of its kind since all such spot ETF applications have been rejected so far by the SEC. Let's see if BlackRock has some pulling power that some of these other companies didn't have. Let's see how this goes. So what is a spot Bitcoin ETF, you may ask? So it's an investment vehicle that tracks the price of Bitcoin and allows investors the ability to invest in BTC or Bitcoin without requiring them to directly own and store the underlying asset. So you could think of it as your traditional mutual fund or index fund, but in this case, focused on the largest cryptocurrency in the world, Bitcoin. So it's allowing us little people to get in the game. And if you don't know, this is absolutely a game changer and something that you should be on top of. Again, this is not financial advice, but definitely bring this article to your financial advisor because this might be something that's big for you in terms of investments. Since this news, right, the price of Bitcoin has gained more than 20%, and investors are excited about the future prospects of Bitcoin. Now, many argue it is unlikely that the application would get approved, but we must mention that BlackRock's record at getting ETFs approved by the SEC is goaded at a record of 575 to 1. So it is highly likely that Bitcoin will get approved, right? And there's still some caution that your professional investor would give you. Again, seek out a financial advisor, but making sure that you're not doing high risk to Bitcoin. Make sure that when you're talking to your financial advisor, you are looking at this as one of your investments, and not everything that you're putting all your eggs in your basket for. And I'm sure your financial advisor will tell you that, or any financial professional that you trust will tell you that. So definitely consult, one of them. But really excited to see what the prospects of Bitcoin are. And with that, that's our quick take for the day.
Dope, 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 dope. Yeah, so definitely some monumental news in terms of Bitcoin even getting more steps towards like being like adopted from an institutional standpoint, right?
Yep.
Because currently, right, when it comes to like the US population, like as of 2022, they say like 21% of Americans have invested in cryptocurrency in some form or fashion, whether that be
Mhm.
Bitcoin or your other cryptocurrencies out there. And so with an ETF, right, we could see like more adoption. But one question I want to pose though, because we're talking about like cryptocurrency, like this thing that used to be heralded as kind of anti-establishment, now seemingly in a pathway to be adopted by establishment. The question is this a good move for Bitcoin and really the entire crypto space?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. That's a great question. And so I would say there's always two sides of the coin, right? So there are some pros to this, right? So the positive is that, like you said, there's only 21% of adults, right? So there's roughly what, over 300 million citizens in the US. If we're saying that there's 20% of everyone, right? That's only 60 million people, and this is probably less than that. And so there is a huge opportunity when it comes to the market, and offering this investment vehicle as an option for more common people, your non-crypto natives, and this does that for them, right? So the first the first positive of this is the ease of investment. So instead of having to get a crypto wallet and really learning the mechanics of Web3 for you to get into investing into Bitcoin, you could just use your brokerage account, right, and invest into that Bitcoin ETF that BlackRock is looking at putting out. So I think from the ease of investment standpoint, this is a really good move. Another thing, another way that this could be positive for Bitcoin, the industry as a whole, is that a spot BTC ETF would be regulated by the SEC, right? And so that gives investors some assurance that the ETF is going to be managed responsibly, but also, right, they know that in 2 or 3 months, the SEC can't really say, "Oh, well, you know what? I don't really like X, Y, and Z." So, we're going to put a lawsuit out against them, right? Outside of what's already there in terms of the rules.
Shout out
Um,
Coinbase.
so, so I think that it again it would be a good signal to the cryptocurrency space, where okay, there is some slimmer of light in there. It's not the full thing. It's not everything that's needed, but I think that it's still a move in the right direction. That there is some ways that people can interact with your cryptocurrencies, with your Bitcoin, without fear of whether or not that will be uh, you know eventually become a negative crypto, right, or a negative instrument of investment because of what's going on with the SEC, or because of it being mismanaged by some exchange, right? So it really gives some hope in that regards. Now, where the negative comes in, right, where it's not the best situation, is that what you're essentially doing is fractionalizing Bitcoin. So you are making it more accessible, but you are also, in a way, inflating, and this might not necessarily be a negative thing, but by fractionalizing it, you uh, essentially create demand, or create make it more accessible where demand can rise. You create an environment for demand to rise. In those cases, usually, even if it doesn't happen as soon as they launch it, at some point that demand starts to inflate, and of course if the demand is inflating, then the cost is going to inflate as well, right? And so I think that we can definitely see increased costs depending on who you talk to. This negative might be a good thing, right? And so when you buy crypto, you might have to pay gas fees. But otherwise, it's a one time thing. Whereas ETFs charge management fees as well, which are perpetual. So you have increased costs as well, and just getting involved with Bitcoin, which is kind of the second negative to it, is that you you know it's nothing for you. You might have gas fees like mentioned here, but it's nothing for you to get a crypto wallet, pay your gas fee at one time, and now you know you have
The
that
currency.
that Bitcoin, right? You have that crypto. You don't have to pay for it ever again. It's there. It's yours. Um, but yeah, so I think that whether this is good or not for Bitcoin is in just crypto in general is a very nuanced answer. Um, but yeah, I think that's really what we're looking at. That there's some positives to it, and then there's also some negatives to it. That I think if you are somebody that's looking into this, you just have to be cautious as anything. But as we laid out, ease of investment and regulation is some of the bright spots you can look for and things you'll want to talk about, and then also increased costs and the increase of the price of Bitcoin is also some things that you want to just have some larger discussions around, and what does that actually look like for your ETF and for the total price of Bitcoin.
Absolutely. And another thing that's important to note, right? So, in the likelihood that this gets approved, like BlackRock's filing by the SEC for the SEC gets approved, we can see very much a domino effect for the crypto industry at large, right? Like as we all know, when it comes to crypto, Bitcoin's the big dog, like, and they really set the direction and the pace for the industry as a whole. So once we get to a point where we have some sort of Bitcoin ETF and for available for the masses, I won't be surprised for like a couple years afterwards we start to see more filings, probably by BlackRock or other huge institutions of like different types of cryptocurrencies, right? Like you have your different types of ETFs, like your high growth cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin being seen more as like a blue stock chip, or like how do you say, a safer option, if you will, right? Like
Yeah,
relatively speaking. And I won't be surprised, especially since Gary Gensler, head of the SEC, he's been taking this viewpoint of essentially all of these cryptocurrencies are securities. So
yeah,
what better way than to have like ETFs that are accessible to the masses, where it's like, okay, you can have an ETF that has some kind of pool of like Matic, Cardano, Ripple, possibly, or
mm,
other popular cryptocurrencies. So that's another thing. We're at the stage in which these moves can have huge implications for the industry as a whole as we continue to progress.
yeah, yeah. No, I think that's a great point. Um, but with that gets me thinking, what does that mean for decentralization, right? So does this concept of having these BTC ETFs, does that undermine that idea of decentralization, right? Like now you have these huge firms that are, coming in and saying, hey, this is this ETF, we in some way they start to control the price of Bitcoin, right? The more they're like almost purposefully and intentionally inflating the price of Bitcoin. I'm not trying to strike this down. I'm not trying to get on BlackRock's hit list for saying this, but um, I don't know. NFT and Jai, what do you think about that? Right? Does the BTC ETF undermine the idea of decentralization?
Right. So I'll say this: the notion of decentralization, right? being that we can have these cryptocurrencies that don't have no central authority that controls it all. We can operate in this free economy, if you will, free of like governmental intervention and whatnot. That's been proven over the years to just be a fallacy, right? It's a dream that been purported to us, the masses, right? But it's not reality, if we're being quite frank. The fact that we're seeing lawsuits by the SEC, that regulators are taking a lot of actions that are seen as punitive within the space as a whole, kind of tells you that, okay, if it's quote unquote decentralized, like how are these actions being taken to begin with, right? And you see these organizations are having to comply, right? So with that saying, like the idea of like an ETF, that's centralization, okay? Because you have these instruments in which you're not going to own Bitcoin directly, right? It's not going to be in your crypto wallet where it's accessible and you can just like use it to make a transaction. You're just going to have an ETF within your portfolio. All right, the cat keeps jumping over the. You see, my cat, he's really upset with like my points. He's like, no, decentralization is real. It's not.
He's a Bitcoin maximalist. He
He's a big
knows
maximalist.
he knows what it is.
I'm a keep it realist, or whatever you want to call it.
I don't even think that's even close to being a word. But all right, let's let's go with it. Keep it realist.
But these ETFs are going to be regulated by the SEC, a centralized governmental agency, right? Now, that's not to say that it's a bad move, because for those reasons you mentioned before, now your everyday person can gain exposure to Bitcoin in a indirect manner, if you will, and have it in their portfolio. And it's easy. Like it's not this whole hoopla of getting these crypto wallets, going to these exchanges, keeping it on exchange, possibly losing your crypto. Like you have a proven investment vehicle via ETF, right? So great in terms of helping with mass adoption, but it totally does undermine the notion of decentralization. Now, the negative argument, the contrarian argument to that though is it also does depend on how the ETF gets structured, right? Like if we have an ETF where it's holding Bitcoin directly, okay, that's a bit more of like a decentralization play versus if this ETF is a mixture of like holding Bitcoin directly, but it's investing in companies that own Bitcoin, because that also promotes centralization, the latter. So
Yeah.
it really depends. But overall, if you was asking me, this completely undermines the notion of decentralization, because nothing about this speaks decentralization.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point, and I would say too, like it is the complete opposite of DeFi, right?
Hmm.
This whole notion of DeFi where these algorithms are kind of controlling like how the finance happens within a platform. It's completely different than BlackRock as a company coming out and saying, hey, we have this ETF we want to do. It's based off of Bitcoin, which is decentralized, but the ETF is very much a centralized product based off of it. So it's like some type of blend between TradFi and I don't even want to call it DeFi. It's really the TradFi and like crypto. But so I think for me, I'm interested to see where those lines start to blur, right? Like right now, BlackRock is doing what they know. I think BlackRock is doing something that they know. Also, the SEC might be more okay with. It's something that they've seen. ETFs are fairly new as well, right? In terms of financial instruments, so it's something that they know. That it still feels like a bit of something that is innovative in terms of the financial world. But I'm interested to see how this grows where you have these traditional banks, these traditional financial institutions that come in and start using maybe some of the concepts of the DeFi world, right? But yeah, in my brain, there's almost no doubt in my mind that this is something that is directly opposite of decentralization, and it is something that's cool. Like, I mean, it's happening. It is what it is. But at the same time, man, like, I think this is where things start to go off the rails a little bit, and where we start to see some bastardization of the original innovation and you know what it's supposed to be used for. But I digress. I digress. I'm gonna stop there. But so great. I love your input. I think you gave us two sides of the coin. I think that it made a lot of sense in terms of like the way that BlackRock goes about it or any other investor goes about it is going to determine what will be centralized or decentralized. It's not cutting dry, just saying, oh, it's an ETF. It's not decentralized, right? Like there are ways to make this ETF product or a future ETF product more decentralized and possibly more beneficial, let's say, for the investor. Who knows? But yeah, with that, man, I'm gonna stop talking. Would love to hear a little bit more. Let's switch gears a little bit and hear about some of the blockchain initiatives that's going on around the world. NFT and Jai, let the people know what we got going on in the market.
So Coinbase, one of the biggest crypto exchanges in the world, they just launched a report around their findings of how more than half of the Fortune 100, so the largest 100 companies within the US, are actively developing blockchain initiatives so they can maintain their global edge. So, Coinbase recently, within this week, posted out this report when they found that 52% of these Fortune 100 companies are actively pursuing crypto, blockchain, or Web3 initiatives since the start of 2020. And 60% of these projects actually were either in pre launch or have been launched in 2022. And so, really, the big reasoning behind this is because these companies recognize that the financial system is centuries old, it needs a major rehaul, and they see that blockchain technology can really be a foundational solution. And we, if you pay attention to every episode of Block to Block, when we talk about what's happening within these different regions of the world and how these different regions are adopting blockchain technology to create real solutions, it's really imperative that these US companies are involved with this as well so they don't lose their edge from a global economic standpoint. So, within this report, we found that 75% of these initiatives are specifically within tech, financial services, and retail.
Mm,
And collectively, these companies have been making a lot of private investments, over 109 private venture capital investments across 80 different blockchain startups since 2017. Collectively, bring in, if you was to add them all together, near $8 billion of investment. And when it comes to their own initiatives within their firms, the average project budget for these initiatives are around 5.8 million.
mm,
And the report don't stop there. They also took a chance to survey the collective Fortune 500 executives and found that 87% of these executives did note that a huge barrier within the industry is the lack of clear rules and stands from the US leadership and lawmakers, and the problem that instead of making new rules to really navigate and to create mandates within the space, we've been enforcing a lot of older rules, which just don't really fit, right? And so they're imploring that U.S. lawmakers create a new set of regulations as it relates to all things Web3. And a lot of these executives also realize that there's a lot at stake at a global level, right? We talked about this in a previous episode, but by 2030, we expect to have a million Web3 developer or blockchain developer jobs available, and 3 million non-technical roles will be created as well that's related to Web3, all by 2030. And so far, the US has been losing its share of global developers. We went from having like 40% down to 29%. And so, US fortune leaders are seeing like really it for us to like help turn this tide around. We do have to have just a clear regulatory stance and direction within the US in order to ensure that US companies can keep their edge from a global level. But that's really the main takeaways from the Coinbase report. There's a lot of work behind the scenes from these top Fortune 100 companies to bring these blockchain initiatives into their organizations, whether it's them developing their own projects or really investing in other companies. But all of them also agreed that we need to have a clear regulatory environment. So, with that, Web3 Wayne, what can we learn from the fact that these Fortune 100 companies are playing within the space? And what's really the takeaway for the audience?
Hey man, the takeaway is Coinbase is on the lawmakers' ass, man. They say y'all keep playing around, we got you. We gonna go ahead and drop this report on y'all head top. Y'all think it's a game. We gonna put some money into this. Y'all gonna feel what we talking
It
about.
was like Denzel off of Training Day. You think you can do this to me?
Right. Man, they said, listen, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. And I
Mhm.
say this, $8 billion, that don't lie. That don't lie at all. We
Right. Just
talking
from the
about
top 100 companies.
exactly. That those numbers don't lie. But we talking about venture capital investment from the top 100 companies. So that means that they're going to invest in things that they believe at some point is going to be, the next innovation, and it's really going to, be something that in some way, shape, or form is going to take their business forward. It's going to take their business possibly to the next level. So
Mm,
that means that they're putting their money, honestly, where their brains are, right? They're putting their money and saying, hey, we see the trends right now. We see what these companies are doing, right? I mean, we just talked about BlackRock, right? They saw what, even though they had, negative press as of late, it is not just press, right? They did terrible things. FTX, Terra Luna, they saw that, hey, they have this financial innovation that a lot of people are rocking with. For you to even get to the point where, you're in the situation that you're in, you got to make money because people are, interested in what you're doing, and are willing to put some money into it. So I think that, one of the big takeaways is Coinbase ain't playing around. That's one of the big takeaways. Second takeaway is that these companies, these Fortune 100 companies, um, kudos to Coinbase for putting this together. These Fortune 100 companies, they truly see the vision, and they believe that this technology is something that's going to be foundational for their businesses. But then the takeaway number three is that just as much as, the regulation and laws can stifle innovation, the lack of, right, can also stifle that innovation. And that's why if you go back and watch our previous episodes, we had our list of ways to kind of evaluate different different ecosystems, different economies, and how they may be good or bad for the Web3 market. And one of the things that we said was regulatory environment, right?
mm,
We didn't just say the regulation; we said the environment in general, right? Uh, the EU, their regulation is probably one of the toughest that we've seen thus far, right? But there's still clarity there, right? There's still ways that you can work through it and get through it, and figure things out to where, I can, begin to build something, like knowing, having the peace of mind that I don't have to worry about whether or not this is going to come back and bite me in the behind later, right? And I think that's huge that they said, okay, let's go ahead and not just Fortune 100, let's go survey Fortune 500 executives, right? And getting 87% of them, nearly 90% of all executives saying that, it's really the regulatory environment. There aren't clear rules. Like we need not only the enforcement of these older rules, but we need new rules. We need rules that are also innovative, trying to apply rules that are 100, 500, shoot, even at the rate of innovation, 50 years old, trying to apply those rules to what we have now is asinine, right? It's ridiculous. Like we honestly need, and I think this is also not to just come at congressmen. I think there needs to be some effort from a lot more of the Web3 environment. Not saying that the people within the Web3 industry haven't been offering up services and advice and perspective, but definitely it's time to get more into it and get active and figure out ways to help lawmakers to structure this regulatory environment in a way that's beneficial for innovation and allows for our startups and our Web3 developers to come back into the US. We often talk about creating jobs. This is a great opportunity to create more jobs for people, and really push the envelope and push the industry forward. So those are my three big takeaways. I thought that this is a great report by Coinbase, and I think there's really a lot here for us to kind of take away and take into next steps and next action items.
Yeah. And I'll say this for the vast audience, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're just somebody who's trying to keep up with like trends in technology, don't play yourself by assuming that blockchain, all things Web3, is just dead because of what happened with FTX and like the market downturn and the fact that generative AI specifically is all up in the news, right? As we mentioned in every episode, these technologies stay and these technologies will converge on together in order to make more impactful solutions. And do you really think like these companies who collectively invested like 8 billion in capital towards investing in blockchain companies, towards doing their own projects and initiatives are just going to scrap them and kick it to the wayside? Absolutely not. They're really building and they're really thinking for the long term. And so it's important that you also think for the long term as well. So some key takeaways I would say specifically for the entrepreneurs is, do some research into like what these top Fortune 100 companies are doing, right? Like I really suggest like make a list of those companies, like the ones that are directly in your space and seeing like, okay, we know like most of them are like in tech, financial services or retail. So what's going on? Like what's going on with an Apple or Microsoft or whoever? Like, what is it that they're doing? What ecosystems have they have created? Which companies have to from, right? There's so much, and it will be a disservice to all of us if we just don't take it seriously and we just assume because this technology is not really as heavy in the media cycle as an AI or whichever technology that comes out, that it's all dead. Like it's not dead. Oh, sorry, my computer froze up for a second.
Okay, I thought that was mine. I think that might have been me. I don't know. My Wi-Fi has been a bit iffy as of late. But I missed the last part.
Yeah, essentially, man, like don't play yourselves. Like pay attention to what's going on and seeing how like you can leverage this information for yourself, whether that's looking into what these companies are doing within the space and seeing like how you can directly benefit, whether it's getting tied with the ecosystem, maybe it's even if you're like a retail investor, like investing in these firms who are doing things within Web3, all types, there's all types of opportunities that are presented through this report.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think it's even for people who aren't entrepreneurs, right? If you are, um, you are an employee, I think it's something for you to be looking at. If you're looking at ways to, um, kind of elevate yourself within your organization, start to follow what's going on, right? Like the entrepreneurship, right? The spirit of entrepreneurship and innovation is not just left with startups, right? You can be very much innovative within these larger companies. Now, it may look different. You may have to be in a different department. You may even be somebody who, um, is more so helping other people find startups or, innovations that could fit well with, what you're doing at your company. There's multiple ways for you to be looking at what's going on. There's multiple ways for you to get involved in this space. You don't have to, work at a Web3 company for you to be somebody that is in Web3. I think that there's going to be more than enough demand from these larger institutional players, these larger businesses, where they're getting involved, right? It's not even they're going to they're already involved, right? And they need more people, especially if you're on the younger side. I mean, especially if you're even on the older side and more experienced side, I should say. They need people to help to integrate this new technology into what they're doing, and be creative, and be the trailblazers within the organization as well. So I know we talk about, we're startup founders, and we talk a lot about, ways that startups and small businesses can use it. But also, if you're an employee, this is one of those chances where you can be on the forefront of something big that happens for your company, a huge transformation. And don't take that lightly. Don't take that
Absolutely.
lightly.
Absolutely. Remember, a million developer jobs are on the rise by 2030, and 3 million non technical roles are on the rise by 2030. So
Yeah.
put yourself in that position. And one of the best ways to do that is to watch every episode of Block to Block, and make sure you like, comment, subscribe with all your loved ones. And you really use this as one of your stepping stones towards building up that knowledge base.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well,
But yeah,
shoot, man. I think that's a great way to conclude another great episode. Uh, love what we talked about today, man. I hope you're definitely enjoying it as well. Make sure to leave a comment and let us know what you think on the topics today, and what you'd like to hear us cover and discuss. But with that, I am Web3 Wayne.
and I'm NFT and Jai.